Namo Buddhaya and a very warm welcome, dear Dhamma friends, to our Friday Dhamma sharing session under our Dhamma Dana lecture series. I'm Brother Eric and I'll be your host for today. We are privileged to have with us Brother Ananda Fong as our speaker for today. Let us now bring Brother Ananda Fong online. Namo Buddhaya, Brother Ananda.
Namo Buddhaya, Brother Eric.
Yes, I'll do a short introduction on Brother Ananda Fong. Brother Ananda Fong was a student, facilitator, and deputy principal at the Buddhist Institute Sunday Dhamma School at Buddhist Mahavihara, Kuala Lumpur. He was a student of the late Venerable K. Sri Dhammananda. He was the president of Bandar Utama Buddhist Society and principal of its Sunday Dhamma School. He was also the first honorary Secretary General of the Theravada Buddhist Council of Malaysia in 2012 and later the Assistant Honorary Secretary General till 2018. He was appointed the Director of Pustaka Nalanda in 2011 with the main library at Sri Serdang and branch libraries in Kuala Lumpur, Johor Bahru and Sungai Petani. He actively promotes reading the Nikayas and facilitates Dhamma courses and sharing regularly in Malaysia. Today's topic is entitled The Place of Confidence in Buddhism. Okay. With that, we welcome Brother Ananda to deliver today's Dhamma sermons.
Namo Buddhaya, dear brothers and sisters. Let us start the sharing with a short puja to pay respect to the three jewels. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. 5 precepts. Panatipata veramani sikkhavadang samadhiyami. Adinnadana veramani sikkhavadang samadhiyami. Kamisu nicatara veramani sikkhavadang samadhiyami. Mussavada veramani sikkhavadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majja pamadatthana veramani sikkhavadang samadhiyami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. As Brother Eric just now introduced, the topic for this evening sharing is the place of confidence in Buddhism. Here, the Pali word we are talking primarily about is Saddha, frequently translated as faith, but can also be rendered as confidence. As we go through life, all living beings seek a happy life, a contented and unthreatening way of life. And as you look through the social media, you can find many kinds of advices from various people. Here is just an example of 26 strategies for a happy life. There are yet many other ideas on how to achieve a happy life. But whatever we do, there are certain characteristics of nature, of life. From the pictures, you can see We are born, we grow up, hopefully we have good friends. We are, and as we grow older and older, we find jobs, we find our love, we have companionship, we build a family. But as time goes on, this impermanence stretches, makes us old. We get old, and sooner or later, our partner, our spouse may pass away, and we ourselves will pass away. This is the nature. We are born, we live a life, we grow old, and we pass away. So impermanence is a standard feature all around. And because of this characteristic of impermanence, it causes unsatisfactoriness, not what we want. We want to be 18 or even 21 years old forever. Look beautiful, look handsome, uh, don't have comorbidities in terms of health situations and so on. That is all we want. But it does not come to be. And so, as we go through life, many of us, from the ancient times right down even today, we often are surrounded by all these forces in our life. And many of us turn to prayer. But we soon realize that nature is impartial. It cannot be flattered by mere prayer. So because of that, hoping for our lives to change for the better, this hope, this pious hope, slowly becomes belief. From one belief to many beliefs, and from belief, we have this idea, this philosophy, this religion. So it goes on and on. But our experience, if we look closely enough, shows us that life is subject to a series of ever-changing conditions. In the top picture, you can see a seed germinating and with sprouts coming out. What is the condition? Well, we need to have good seed. We need to have moist soil, fertile soil. We need to have oxygen, the right temperature to surround it, and the adequate amount of light, sunlight, for it to, all these conditions to come together in the appropriate quantities for germination and the plant to proceed. On the right hand side, the picture shows a standard thing which we learn in school. Water evaporates, and sooner or later it forms clouds. And under certain conditions, these clouds will cause precipitation, what we call rain, raining on the mountainside, hillside, which flows down via streams, which form lakes, rivers, and then it goes back down to the sea. And the cycle repeats. This we see happening all around us every day. So for those people who are particularly interested in various kind of forces, and some might call it God, some insist that Buddhism is a religion, and therefore, being religion, they insist that religions must have a God. And so Buddhism being often regarded as a religion, there's an expectation that there is a Buddhist God too. Unfortunately, the Buddha didn't talk about this. Ajahn Buddhadasa, in his wisdom, mentioned that the law of nature is the law of conditionality. This law of conditionality is the Buddhist God, a very, very natural law, an impartial law. Now, with this idea of a natural law, the Buddha, under the Bodhi tree, when he got enlightened, was able to survey his path, and he came up with this revelation. In the Dhammapada verse 153, he mentioned, through many a birth in samsara, samsara meaning a cycle of continued birth and death, birth and death. So through many a birth in this cycle of birth and death, wandered I, seeking but not finding the builder of this house. Sorrowful is repeated birth. This is what the Buddha found. Elsewhere, the Buddha in the Sutta, Asu Sutta, talks about the flow of tears. So here he says, the flow of tears we have shared while roaming and transmigrating, that means being born again and again, is indeed more than the water in the four oceans. For a long time, you have undergone the death of a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a son, a daughter, loss of relatives, loss of wealth, or loss through illness, from being united with the unloved and separated from the loved. The flow of tears you have shed while roaming and transmigrating is indeed more than the water in the four oceans. And why is that? Transmigration, or the cycle of birth and death, has no known beginning. No first point is found of sentient beings roaming and transmigrating, hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. So, here the Buddha talks about the beginning of the universe, of life and everything, that there is no known beginning because we are hindered by ignorance and our own craving, which obscures our view of our own path. Soon after his enlightenment, the Buddha exclaimed, "O house builder, you are seen. You will not build this house again, for your rafters are broken and your rigid pole shattered. My mind, the Buddha's mind, has reached the unconditioned. I have attained the destruction of craving." This is in Dhammapada verse 154. So when the Buddha attained enlightenment, his mind attained the unconditioned. By the destruction of craving, he stopped his own continued cycle of birth and death, wandering through this universe. So some people will ask, though often treating Buddhism as a religion, what is Buddhism? Why Buddhism? Why should we learn something about Buddhism? Well, in this particular verse from the Vinaya Pitaka, the Mahavagga, the Buddha was sending off the first 60 enlightened disciples, and he mentioned, out of compassion for the world, the monks should go forth and teach the Dhamma, teach what they have discovered, what the Buddha has shared with them, for the benefit, for the happiness, for the welfare of gods and human beings. So in essence, Buddhism is for our benefit, is for our happiness and for our welfare. Here is a quick rundown on the qualities of the Dhamma. Dhamma means the teachings of the Buddha, and here at the bottom, the English translation. The Dhamma is well expounded by the Blessed One, to be seen here and now, timeless, inviting verification, leading onward to be realized by the wise for themselves. Here I would like to mention, highlight two particular important qualities. That the Dhamma is timeless. The Dhamma is likened to the natural laws of the universe, as Ajahn Buddhadasa has earlier said. It is timeless. Who ever heard of gravity having an expiry date? It is always timeless. And the Dhamma invites verification. So the whole of Buddhism doesn't beckon you to just believe. The Buddha invites you, please verify what he has taught you, what he has shared with you, to make sure that you understand it properly for yourself. So investigation is key in Buddhism. In another sutta, called the Ita Sutta, the Buddha mentioned something about desirableness, something that everybody wants. Here the Buddha says, House Lord, there are these 5 things that are desirable, beloved, and agreeable, but difficult to obtain in the world. What are the 5? Long life, beauty, happiness, fame, and rebirth in heaven. And I'm sure many of us have many other long lists of things we want. Of these 5 things, House Lord, the Buddha said, I do not teach that they are to be obtained through prayer, nor through wishing. If one could obtain them through prayer or through wishing, who would not obtain them? So here clearly the Buddha says, through time immemorial, our ancient past, right down to the current situation, we are all wishing and praying for this and that. But yet the Buddha says, you cannot just obtain them by mere prayer or through mere wishing. You have to do something. And the Buddha continues, it is not proper that he should pray for rebirth in heaven for long life, for beauty, for fame, and so on. He should rather follow a way of life that is conducive to long life, to health, to fame, to beauty, to rebirth in heaven. By following such a path, he would obtain what is desirable. So that means the Buddha says clearly that there is something for us to do, not the action of praying and wishing. We have to do something more concrete. But what is this action that we need to do? We have to ask ourselves. Well, here is another advice from the Dhammapada, verse number 19. Many Buddhists like to recite sacred texts. And in this particular page, we are comparing the reciting of sacred texts versus practicing the teaching. In this verse 19, the Buddha mentioned, much though he recites the sacred text, but acts not accordingly. That heedless man is like a cowherd who only counts the cows of others. He does not partake of the blessings of the holy life, which means the Buddha downgrades the importance of mere recitation of sacred text and not practicing the teaching. And the companion verse, number 20, from the Dhammapada, little though he recites the sacred text, but puts the teaching into practice, forsaking greed or lust, hatred and delusion, with true wisdom and emancipated mind, clinging to nothing of this or any other world, he indeed partakes of the blessing of a holy life. So here the Buddha categorically says that practicing the teaching is the most critical. And why is often recitation of sacred texts emphasized? Well, this comes from the long history that in Indian society, during the time of the Buddha, they didn't have paper. Paper was invented by the Chinese. So in China, they were doing a lot of writing. But in India, the method of learning, of passing down knowledge and so on, was by memorization. And memorization is aided by repeated recitation of whatever you have learned. So that's the origin of recitation. But recitation for preservation, for remembering whatever the teacher taught is one aspect. You need to understand what is in the text and then put it into practice. And the practice is the portion which the Buddha emphasized. But as you go on looking for recommendations as to what to do, what kind of teaching from this teacher, that teacher, how are we to evaluate all these ideas which are thrown to us? So of course, today we have books, we have the social media, we have various blogs, and so on. But during the time of the Buddha, in the Kalama Sutta, the Kalamas had a similar problem. There were so many teachers around them, each of them giving different advice. And here, the Buddha advised the Kalamas not to go by reports, by legends, by tradition, by scripture, by logical conjecture, by inference, by analogies, by agreement through pondering views, by probability, or by the thought. This contemplative, this guru, or this monk is our teacher. So it is not by that. But how do we judge? And the Buddha continues. When you know for yourself that these qualities are unskillful, these qualities are blameworthy, these qualities are criticized by the wise, these qualities, when adopted and carried out, lead to harm and to suffering, not just for the person carrying it out, but to the people around them also. And the Buddha advised, then you should abandon them. You should discard them. And the Buddha continues. The judgment is whether those ideas are for welfare or for harm. And so the Buddha continues. When greed, hatred, or delusion arises in a person, the Buddha asks, does it arise for welfare or for harm? And the Kalamas replied, for harm, of course. So this greedy, hateful, or deluded person, overcome by all these defilements, mind possessed by these defilements, they proceed to kill living beings, take what is not given, goes after another person's wife or husband, tells lies, and induces others to do likewise. all of which is for long-term harm and suffering. So, what do you accept? Well, when you know for yourself that these qualities are skillful, these qualities are blameless, these qualities are praised by the wise, these qualities, when adopted and carried out, lead to welfare and to happiness, not just to you, but to everyone, then you should enter and remain in them. Therefore, the criteria should be this state. So you can use your common sense to judge the skillfulness, the blamelessness, whether the certain idea is praised by the wise, and so on. So with this simple yardstick to judge whether a certain idea or certain recommendation or teaching is right or wrong, we have to get on the right path. We have to find the right path. And the Buddha says in Dhammapada verse 192, this indeed is the safe refuge. This the refuge supreme. Having gone to such a refuge, one is released from all dukkha, dukkha meaning unsatisfactoriness or suffering. And the Buddha referring to this refuge is that of the refuge of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. But of course, still subject to your verification, not mere belief. So we come back to the definition. The place of Saddha in Buddhism. So Saddha, the Pali word, the language spoken by the Buddha, often rendered as confidence, faith, conviction, trust, inspiration, patience, courage, let it be, relaxation, willingness to look into, opening up to see what is. But the most common translation and rendition in most Buddhist organizations is that Saddha is faith. So here I've rendered it confidence. Well, on the aspect of this faith, there are various kinds of faith. In an article by Sharon Salzberg in 1997, she mentioned there is such a thing called bright faith, where a sense of being able to draw near, to open up, to be inspired, powerful but unreliable. There is an emotional quality of wonderment, of excitement. This is very, very common. This is the most common kind of faith found in the world. But yet, if you go deeper, there is such a thing called verified faith, and which means encountered a teaching and have gotten inspired. And we have done something about that. We have actually practiced the advice. We have explored it. We have dwelled into it for ourselves, not just mere listening to a teacher. So here the picture shows a person who is trying to develop her mind through meditation, to verify things for herself, to see if it is true, does it make sense, and so on. And yet, the deepest faith is that of unshakable faith. In this case, we have experienced something so deeply and strongly that from that point on, there is no turning back. We know from our own experience that this is how things are through our own understanding. Now, you will see the three different kinds of faith, and in Buddhism, the Buddha emphasizes enlightenment as that of unshakable faith. Initially, one may come to learn a certain idea or philosophy or religion through bright faith. And we listen to this teacher and that teacher, seems very inspiring. But if we leave it at that and we continue to go back to this center or to this teacher without inquiring further, often bright faith is likened to blind faith. It is very unreliable. So the Buddha encourages us to go and verify. The Dhamma is inviting investigation. So we have to verify what has been taught. We have to practice it, explore it, dwell into it. And soon as we go deeper and deeper into the details, we will be able to see things as they are. And that at that level, there is no more faith in the way. Why? You do not need to believe because you know for yourself, as you have seen it yourself, you have experienced it yourself. That is called unshakable faith. So this path taught by the Buddha, this path leads to liberation, to freedom, freedom from dukkha, freedom from suffering, and so on. And this path is the Noble Eightfold Path. As with all paths lead from where you are standing to go somewhere. There is a destination. And what is this destination? It's a noble destination. It ennobles us, it transforms us, it changes us. And what are the things we need? There are these eightfold aspects. Not just eight, but eightfold. Why? All these eight interact with each other, support each other, reinforce each other, so that your journey along this path ennobles you. So all eight are required. And what is this Noble Eightfold Path? The path to liberation. These are perfect view or understanding, perfect intention or thought, perfect speech, perfect action, perfect livelihood, perfect effort, perfect mindfulness, perfect concentration. The Buddha also mentioned that as we go through life, there's a need to make merit. Merit is doing something wholesome, something praiseworthy. And in this particular sutta, the Punya Kiriya Vatu Sutta, the Buddha mentions, what are these three grounds, three avenues for making merit? Well, one should train in deeds of merit that yield long-lasting happiness. This long-lasting happiness is beneficial to us here and now on earth. That is the quality of learning how to give, cultivating virtue, cultivating mental development. So in Pali, Dana, Sila, Bhavana. So by cultivating these three things, these yielding happiness, the wise person is reborn in bliss in an untroubled, happy world. So the practice of giving, of cultivating virtue and mental development aids us, helps us to live a good life. But all this effort to practice this, to do this and that, takes time. Everything is gradual. Everything is step by step. In the Uposatha Sutta from the Udana 5.5, the Buddha mentions, just as the ocean has a gradual swell, a gradual slope, a gradual inclination with a sudden drop-off, only after a long stretch. In the same way, this doctrine and discipline, Dhamma and Vinaya, has a gradual training, a gradual performance, a gradual progression with a penetration to noxus only after a long stretch. During the Buddha's time, the Buddha referred to his teachings as Dhamma Vinaya, meaning doctrine and discipline. He didn't use the word Buddhism. So what is this culture of giving? Why is it so important? Well, in yet another sutta from the Iti-Buddhaka, the Buddha mentioned, if beings knew, as I know, the result of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would they allow the stain of meanness to obsess them and to take root in their mind. So such is the importance of giving. It is not just mere giving. It is what I call conscientious giving, not expecting anything in return. Wholesome giving, that is the one that bears the most fruit. And this takes practice because it is not often in our nature. Many of us have certain degrees of meanness, of stinginess. So we have to cultivate giving so that we are more liberal. What about the cultivation of virtue? Here the Pali word is called sila. Well, cultivation of virtue starts with abstention. And just now, at the start of this Dhamma sharing, we recited the 5 precepts, 5 training precepts, Panchasila. Now, the 5 training precepts are different from commandments. There are no commandments in Buddhism. There are only training precepts, self-development, so that we can develop ourselves from our current status up to a high level of virtue. And what do you do in these 5? We abstain from killing living beings. We abstain from taking what is not given. We abstain from sexual misconduct. We abstain from false speech. We abstain from taking intoxicants or anything that causes heedlessness. These are the basic 5 precepts that help us to develop, and these practices protect us. But just because you abstain from something, it does not mean that you are what I call cultivating more noble qualities. And therefore, the opposite of abstention, which means opposite of killing, is to save life. These form the 5 ennoblers. The 5 ennoblers ennoble us, make us more noble. So, if we abstain from killing in the precept, we ennoble ourselves by trying to save life. How do we save life? We can donate our blood, donate platelets, donate organs. In this case, even learn certain skills, the Heimlich maneuver and the CPR, and so many other things that can help us to save life when there's a need. So the ennoblers are basically the direct, the wholesome opposite of all the precepts. Here, we need to continue by cultivating our mind. The whole of Buddhism is about mental cultivation, bhavana. Here in the Kalama Sutta, the Buddha taught the Kalamas the basics. Thus devoid of greed, devoid of ill will, undeluded, alert, and resolute. The person keeps pervading the first direction, which is the east, the second direction, which is the south, the third direction, which is the west, and the fourth direction, which is the north, with an awareness imbued with goodwill. In Pali, goodwill is metta, or also translated as loving kindness. Thus, it keeps pervading above, below, and all around, everywhere, and in every respect, the all-encompassing cosmos, with an awareness imbued with goodwill, abundant, expansive, immeasurable, free from hostility, free from ill will. Not just goodwill, the Buddha encouraged the Kalamas to practice cultivating ever-encompassing compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. These are the 4 qualities which the Buddha encourages all of us to develop within ourselves. In the end, the Buddha clearly says that you are responsible for yourself. And in this particular sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, Book of 5, the Buddha mentions, I am the owner of my deeds, heir to my deeds. Deeds are my womb, my relatives, my refuge. I shall be the heir of whatever deeds I do, whether good or bad. So clearly, we are all responsible for ourselves. Coming back to the aspect of confidence, faith, or the Pali term called Saddha, accomplishment of confidence. In the Digajanu Sutta, the Buddha was posed some questions from a lay person asking about what kind of things he could do to have worldly progress. And in the second portion, conditions for spiritual progress. So in this worldly progress, the Buddha recommended 4 important conditions we need to develop to take care of ourselves here and now. The accomplishment of persistent effort, of watchfulness, of good friendship, and balanced livelihood. That is for worldly progress of here and now. But of spiritual progress, the Buddha mentioned that we need to develop our confidence or our faith. We need to develop virtue. We need to develop charity, and we need to develop wisdom. All these 4 will help us in our spiritual progress in the hereafter. So what is this accomplishment of confidence, accomplishment or saddha? Herein, a householder is possessed of trust or confidence or faith. He has confidence in the enlightened one, enlightenment of the perfect one. That means that confidence in the enlightenment of the Buddha. Thus, indeed, is this blessed one. He is the pure one, fully enlightened, endowed with knowledge and conduct. Well gone, the knower of the world, the incomparable leader of men to be tamed, the teacher of gods and men, all-knowing and blessed. This is called the accomplishment of confidence. But for beginners, this will be difficult to achieve because it is as if the Buddha is asking you to just blindly trust him. No, that is not the intent. The intent is that we have to build up your confidence in the Buddha. The Buddha has to prove himself, as the Buddha elsewhere would say. How is that possible? Well, by taking some basic teaching which the Buddha has taught, you try it out for yourself, you verify that it works for yourself, you practice those teachings. As you practice little by little bit, you see the significance, the gains you achieve in your person, and with that, then you come to know for yourself, not what somebody says that you should do, but you come to know for yourself that what the Buddha taught works. I can verify it for myself. With that, your confidence, your faith, your trust in the Buddha grows. And with that, in time, this confidence is absolute. And therefore, you can fulfill this accomplishment of Saddha, accomplishment of confidence. Now, in this particular sutta, the Saddha Sutta, a person with faith, a person with Saddha, here the Buddha gives an analogy. Just as a large banyan tree on level ground, where four roads meet, is a haven for the birds all around. Even so, a layperson of conviction, a layperson of faith, a layperson of confidence is a haven for many people. What are those people? Of monks, of nuns, male lay disciples, and female lay followers. So a massive tree with branches carry fruits and leaves, with trunks and roots, with an abundance of fruit. There the birds find rest. In that delightful sphere, they make their home. Those seeking shade come to the shade. Those seeking fruit find fruit to eat. So with the person consummate in virtue of and conviction, who is humble, sensitive, gentle, delightful, and mild, to him come those without effluence, without defilement. These people who are free from passion, from greed, free from aversion and hatred, free from delusion, a field of merit for the world. A person who is free from influence, as the Buddha would mention, is an arahat, a person who is fully enlightened, who has got rid of greed, hatred, and delusion. So these arahats will teach this person of virtue, of conviction, who is humble, sensitive, gentle, delightful, and mild, will teach the Dhamma that dispels all dukkha, all suffering, all unsatisfactoriness. And when he understands, he is freed from this same influence, becoming totally liberated. So a faithful person attracts all these, what they call, enlightened beings who will share the Dhamma, their experience with him. And if he understands and he practices it, he too will be free from influence, totally liberated. Of course, some of you may be asking, and here the verse says, and when he understands, how can that be? What do you need to do to understand this? Well, in another sutta, the Buddha gives a little bit more details. So, in this Saddha Sutta, or sometimes called the Apana Sutta, the Buddha mentions, Sir, a noble disciple who is sure and devoted to the realized one, or devoted to the Buddha, would have no doubt or uncertainty about the realized one or his instructions. You can expect that a faithful, noble disciple will live with energy roused up or giving up unskillful qualities and embracing skillful qualities. They are strong, staunchly vigorous, not slacking off when it comes to developing a skillful quality. For their energy is the faculty of energy. And you can expect that a faithful, energetic, noble disciple will be mindful with utmost mindfulness and alertness, able to remember and recall what was said and done long ago. For their mindfulness is the faculty of mindfulness. So on this page, you can see that a person, a faithful, noble disciple, it means a noble, faithful student, a confident student who is confident in the enlightenment of the Buddha will have his energy roused up and he will put in the necessary work to give up unskillful qualities and embrace skillful qualities. He will work on developing all these qualities. And in so doing, this person will also develop mindfulness. So the sutta continues. You can expect that the faithful, energetic, and mindful noble disciple will, relying on letting go, gain immersion, gain unification of mind. For their samadhi, samadhi is a Pali word for unification of the mind, or some other texts you might use the term concentration, which means the person is not easily distracted. Most of us are distracted. We can't even sit for 5 minutes uh, looking and paying attention to one particular item. But with samadhi, the person is absolutely immersed in that item. No wandering of mind. So in the last paragraph, you can expect that a faithful, energetic, mindful, noble disciple with their mind immersed in samadhi will understand. So with these qualities, will understand, will have wisdom aroused. He will see that transmigration has no known beginning. No first point is found of sentient beings roaming and transmigrating, hindered by ignorance, fettered by craving. But when that dark mass of ignorance fades away and ceases with nothing left over, that state is peaceful and sublime. So, with faith and energetic pursuit of practice, the person develops mindfulness. And when the person develops mindfulness, he directs the mind to develop deeper and deeper immersion of the mind or concentration. And with that as a supporting factor, the person's wisdom will grow. And with wisdom, he understands, he sees that there is no beginning, no first point, and so on. So that is the sealing of all activity, the letting go of all attachment, the ending of craving, fading away, cessation, extinguishment. For their noble wisdom is the faculty of wisdom. So when the noble disciple have tried again and again, recollected again and again, entered immersion or concentration again and again, and understood with wisdom again and again, they will be confident of this. I have previously heard of these things, but now I have direct meditative experience of them and see them with penetrating wisdom. Remember earlier in our set of slides, we were talking about the 3 different kinds of faith, of bright faith, of verifiable faith. Here, we are talking about seeing things for themselves with penetrating wisdom. This is the arising of unshakable faith. So this paragraph ends with, for their faith is the faculty of faith. So with this, the person has practiced well enough that the person has got rid of dukkha and has become liberated. Here, I'd like to go back to the first paragraph of this particular page, the mentioning of end of craving, fading away, cessation, extinguishment. Here, the Buddha is referring to the nibbanic quality. That means the person is able to let go and be able to experience and see nibbana for himself. In the end, we can all summarize the Buddha's teaching and practice down into this 4-line stanza found in the Dhammapada. This Dhammapada verse 183. To avoid evil, to do good, to purify your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So if you can't remember all the earlier steps of this sharing session, this particular 4-line stanza is ever critical. It not only summarizes the teachings of the Buddha, it basically tells you plainly what we need to do on a daily basis. We need to avoid evil. And how do you avoid evil? By practicing the precepts as a minimum, to give up unskillful state. The next step, we have to perform wholesome action by doing good. Doing good is the ennobling quality. That means the opposite of the 5 precepts. We have to give up the unskillful action. We have to cultivate skillful action. We have to develop our virtues also. And we have to move on to purifying our mind, mental cultivation. And the Buddha's advice to the Kalama was that of cultivating goodwill, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And just recently, we were talking about immersive meditation and so on. These are various aspects of purifying our mind. So this 4-line stanza basically summarizes the whole of the training that we need to do to help ourselves to attain happiness, to attain liberation for ourselves. This is the Buddha's gift to all mankind. That was the end of the sharing this evening. Sabbe satta sukhi hontu. May all beings be happy. Okay, on this question, let me read the question. All living beings possess the Buddha nature within. As Buddhists and human beings, we must have the Saddha, that we are capable of enlightenment, just like the Buddha. Do I agree with this? Definitely. But agreeing is one thing. Agreeing and after that inaction does not bring us anywhere. So to agree is one thing, but we have to put in the necessary effort, guided by what the Buddha taught through various advices, that we have to step by step gradually develop our Buddha nature. Although we have the Buddha nature, it's not a matter of just sitting still and hope everything falls on our lap. The Buddha clearly said we have to work for it. So the whole of Buddhism is practical. So hopefully we are already on our journey on the Noble Eightfold Path. Thank you for the question.
Okay, it seems that that's about all our questions here today. I think it's time also for us to end this today's Dhamma sharings. Okay, we thanks all our audiences for all the good questions posted, and also the excellent answer from our speaker, Brother Ananda Fong. So before we conclude, we would like to invite Brother Ananda Fong to share the merits accrued today with all the devas and our departed loved one.
As is common in Buddhist circles, after listening to the Dhamma, to share the Dhamma, we have generated some wholesome deeds, some wholesome merit, for which we can dedicate it to other living beings. Let us, for those who are familiar, let us recite the Pali verses here. Akasattha bhummatha deva naga mahittika punyang tang anumoditva tirang rakkantu sasanang tirang rakkantu desanang tirang rakkantu mamparanti etha vata amhehi sampatang punya sampatang sabbe deva, sabbe buddha, sabbe satta, anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya. And here we continue with the dedication of merit, especially to our departed relatives. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukita hontu nyatoyo. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukita hontu nyatoyo. Idang me nyatinang hotu, sukita hontu nyatoyo. Sa, sa, sa.
Okay, now we have come to the end of our Dhamma sharing. On behalf of Buddhist Mahavihara, we would like to extend our highest thanks to Brother Ananda Fong, our generous sponsor, and to all our audiences present today. May all be well, peaceful, and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.